All right, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a really powerful idea, one that's at the very core of the Friday Afterlife Report, the concept that our existence, well, it doesn't just end. Let's get right into it.
You know, it is so easy to feel anxious right now. You look at the news, you see all the chaos, it can be a whole lot. But the material we're looking at today poses a really fundamental question to counter all that unease. What if our single biggest fear, the idea that it all just stops, is based on a complete misunderstanding?
So this isn't just some philosophical curiosity. The whole point here is to frame the evidence for an afterlife as a potential antidote to that modern fear. It's about offering a totally different lens to view our lives and the challenges we all face.
And this quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? It's a direct response to that feeling of being overwhelmed. It suggests that if you can truly understand your own eternal nature, it can shift your entire perspective from fear to resilience. So, what is this understanding actually based on?
Well, that's where the evidence comes in. The reports have pulled together decades of research and personal accounts, and they're basically sorted into a few key areas. Each one offers its own unique glimpse into what might be waiting for us beyond our physical lives. The evidence really falls into three big buckets. First, we're going to talk about near-death experiences. You know, those incredible stories from people who clinically died and then came back. Then, we'll look into spirit communication through mediumship. And finally, we'll touch on after-death contact, which is way more common than you might think.
One of the most common things people report from NDEs is the life review. Now try to wrap your head around this. You're not just re-watching your life like a movie. You are reliving every single moment, but this time you feel the impact your actions had on every single person you ever interacted with. People who've gone through it, like Barbara Whitfield, say it's this incredibly powerful realization that we are all profoundly connected.
So those are profound internal experiences. But the reports also point to external phenomena, and that brings us to the next category, physical mediumship. This goes way beyond just getting messages. The claim is that spirit entities can directly affect the physical world, creating voices out of thin air, moving objects, or even materializing forms. It's a very rare and, you can bet, a heavily scrutinized phenomenon.
This quote comes from a really compelling case. Dr. Nanji, a medical doctor, spent 12 years traveling to London just to have recorded two-way conversations with his deceased wife, Ani. His conviction was just absolute. He said, "This wasn't someone impersonating my wife, it was my dead wife." That kind of dedication from a man of science, it really highlights the profound certainty these experiences can create.
But you know, maybe the most common form of contact isn't so dramatic. A lot of times it happens in dreams. And we're not talking about your typical weird pizza dream. These are described as unbelievably vivid, logical, and emotionally powerful. A loved one appears, they look healthy and happy, and they often deliver a message of reassurance. Researchers have noted that people remember these contact dreams with crystal clarity for years and years.
Okay, so the idea of an afterlife naturally leads to another huge question, one that has seen a major shift in thinking over the last few decades. Do we come back?
Not too long ago, reincarnation was pretty much dismissed in the West, but the reports argue that a growing body of documented cases, especially with children, is forcing everyone to reevaluate. The focus has really shifted from simple belief to systematic investigation.
And at the forefront of this research was a psychiatrist, Dr. Ian Stevenson. He looked into thousands of cases of children who claimed to remember past lives. And what's so compelling are the patterns he found. The memories pop up between ages 2 and 4, then they fade between 5 and 8. A lot of them recall a traumatic end. And get this, some even have birthmarks that correspond to wounds on the body of the person they claim to be.
The case of James Leininger is just a powerful example. As a toddler, he had these recurring nightmares and knew all these super specific details about a World War II aircraft and a pilot who died in combat. His parents were skeptical at first, of course, but they ended up verifying dozens of little details he couldn't have possibly known. It was enough to convince them his memories were totally genuine.
So, if we accept these possibilities, that consciousness survives death and maybe even returns, it begs the ultimate question: why? Is there a point to all the challenges and the triumphs of life? This quote from psychiatrist Dr. Brian Weiss captures a pretty radical idea, that our lives aren't random. The theory is that we, as souls, actually choose our major life circumstances, our families, our challenges, as part of a pre-birth plan for our own growth and learning.
It totally shifts the perspective from being a victim of circumstance to being an active participant in your own soul's curriculum. This idea is explored with a technique called life between lives regression. Using deep hypnosis, therapists like Dr. Michael Newton found that their clients could access memories not just of past lives, but of the time between lives. In this state, they'd recall their soul group, review their past lives, and even remember the process of planning their current one. The implication is huge. Our deepest challenges are not punishments, they're self-chosen opportunities for our own evolution.
So, let's bring this all together. We started with the fear and overwhelm of modern life. We've looked at glimpses of an afterlife, the possibility of reincarnation, and the concept of a soul's plan. So what's the ultimate takeaway from all of this?
This quote from the spirit teacher Silver Birch, who's a recurring voice in the reports, just summarizes the new perspective so beautifully. It reframes our entire earthly existence, not as the whole story, but as one really important chapter in a much, much longer journey. And this is the final, distilled message. Whether you're looking at NDEs, mediumship, or reincarnation research, the conclusion that these reports point to is the same. Your fundamental identity is not your body, your job, or your name. It is your eternal consciousness. So we end where we began, but with a new question. It's not about definitively proving any of this. The real challenge posed by this material is simply this. If you held the perspective that this life is not the end, that you are an eternal being on a purposeful journey, what would change for you right now? What fears might just fall away? What priorities might shift? And that's something to think about.